Welcome to the Home Downsizing Show. My name is Ben Socek, your host and the owner and founder of Home Downsizing Solutions. With the Home Downsizing Show, I want to provide you the information and resources to make the downsizing of your house stress and hassle-free. So sit back and enjoy the show. Thank you for joining us. Good morning. I'm Ben Socek. Welcome to the Home Downsizing Show. For today's show, I wanted to go through a presentation to cover some of the questions that I often get asked in regards to selling a house and downsizing. So I thought it might be best to just go through our presentation here this morning. And I think we'll be able to answer a number of those questions. And of course, if you have any questions after this presentation, feel free to call my office, toll free 855-291-5005, or just call me direct at 402-450-0199. And we'd be happy to answer any questions that we can for you in regards to downsizing your home. So again, my name is Ben Socek, and my company is Home Downsizing Solutions. I started the company literally about 25 years, just over 25 years ago in 1997. I am also a licensed real estate agent, just to disclose that. But my primary activities is to, with Home Downsizing Solutions, is to buy houses to make the transition for a homeowner to a senior living or a smaller home as stress-free and easy as possible. So that is our goal. The first question that I often ask individuals is, do you actually want to sell? We work with a number of individuals that, understandably, after owning a house for a long time, they can start the process, think about whether they actually want to sell, if they want to move into a smaller home that's easier to take care of, or possibly an apartment community, to allow them more flexibility with their life. Sometimes it's a better lifestyle in an apartment community than it is by themselves in their house. And so it really is a time to think about what you want to accomplish with the sale of your house, whether you actually do want to sell. Maybe a person has decided that the house is just too big. Maybe the house has too many steps or any steps that are difficult to navigate. And so they've decided it's time to do something. But and that time is good to start getting information and educating yourself about the downsizing process and where to go to, if there is a good place to go to that you would like. The other way that a person sometimes downsizes is, unfortunately, when they're forced to. Maybe they have decided, though, that it's time, or that they're aging in place is the term, just to stay in their home as long as possible, which most people do want to do. I think I would probably want to just stay in my home as long as I possibly can. But at some point, there is typically a health issue or some other issue that forces a person to say, it's time to sell the house and get to a smaller home or apartment community. Sometimes it's their family members deciding for them. And sometimes that's not what a person wants, is for other people to be making those decisions for them. Sometimes a person will inherit a house and decide that there's no reason to hang on to it, that they would rather liquidate the property, especially if it's in need of repairs or updates, and it's more of a headache and a liability versus an asset. We do work with estate or probate situations. And if a person has one of those situations, we can answer questions typically with that and certainly can provide a way to sell that property. Again, if it's more of a liability than an asset, we can certainly take care of that very quickly. And sometimes a person just has a property that maybe it became a rental for them years ago and they've just hung on to it for a while. And at this point, it's just a deciding it's time to part with that property. It's, again, sometimes it becomes a liability versus the asset that a piece of property should be. So again, I typically ask people, what do they really want to accomplish with the sale of that property, or when considering to sell, or especially when downsizing? The thing that we can do here at Home Downsizing Solutions is tailor a solution just for your situation. We don't try and push just one thing on a seller. We can offer multiple situations or multiple solutions in order to get a house sold, depending on what you want to see happen. Because I am a licensed agent, I don't list and sell houses myself, but I do know agents and work with agents all the time that do. And so if that is the best solution for a person, we can certainly introduce you as a home seller to the agent, and they can do a great job of listing and selling a house in a traditional manner for you. And of course, my company can buy the house as is to enable you to make the transition, or your family make the transition to senior living accommodations or just a smaller home, very stress and hassle free. That is our goal with being able to buy the house. And sometimes we have one or two solutions kind of in the middle. So again, it just depends on what your situation is and how we best can help you. The benefits to listing with a real estate agent is that it exposes your property to a large market. When the house gets put on the multiple listing service, it goes to multiple websites for people that are potentially looking for a home. It goes to all the agents in the market that might be working with buyers that are looking for a home at that point. And so just the coverage and that provides is really the biggest benefit of working with an agent. The downside sometimes of listing with an agent is just showing the house and having it on the market in general. So getting or keeping the house in show-ready condition, especially if the house needs updates or repairs, that can sometimes be a headache for a homeowner to get it into show-ready condition. And in a typical market, unlike right now, in a typical market, there's always the unknown or uncertainty of when it will sell. And even if you have a contract on a house with a buyer, of when it will actually close. And one of the issues that I hear a lot about is just where the home seller does not want to have who knows who walking through their house. So that is one of the downsides of listing, is that you're going to have other people that you really don't know walking through your house. And depending on how good of an agent or how good of a buyer's agent is representing them, sometimes you would even have people that can't even qualify to buy your property walking through it. And so that sometimes can be a troubling issue. And with listing a house, you typically do not know what you're going to net until you're at the closing table, sitting down with the closing agent, going over your settlement statement. There are multiple opportunities between the time that you list your house, sign a contract with a buyer to buy the house, and then actually close, to really know what you're going to actually net from that transaction. The benefits that Home Downsizing Solutions can offer is, one, you just don't need to put the house on the market, period. You don't need to worry about any of that. You don't need to worry about doing any repairs or updates to get the house into market-ready condition. And if you have years of stuff accumulated in the house, you don't have to worry about doing anything with that either. You can take the things you want to take, leave the things you want to leave, and sell the things that you want to sell if you want to do that. And any of the stuff, though, that's left over, just leave it and we will take care of it. Our company is a cash buyer. We have funds readily available, so we don't need to get approved for a loan. We can close as soon as the title company can check title and prepare the closing paperwork. And that's literally in as little as 24 hours, we've been able to purchase houses once we've had a contract. So it just depends on the title company, but we can wire funds almost immediately if we have a title company that is ready to go too. Otherwise, we can certainly close on your date of choice. So whether that's within a week or within a few months, we can accommodate your schedule. And that way, when you transition to a smaller home or apartment or other senior living accommodations, you don't need to worry about leaving a vacant house sitting there and being responsible for a vacant house. In general, you have more control over the sale of your property and transition to a new home or apartment. The downside of selling to a cash buyer like Home Downsizing Solutions is that sometimes you won't net quite as much as you will with listing your house from the sale of the house. But the primary reason that people work with my company and sell their house to my company is that they value the benefits that we offer that I just mentioned to you. Just being able to easily sell the property and transition to a new home or apartment community. The one thing that I would caution you of is to beware of what I would term our fake home buyers, especially in the last several years because of the real estate market in general. There have been a lot of companies and individuals pop up that say they can buy houses, that advertise that they buy houses for cash, but they really don't have any intent or ability to buy houses, and they're what are called wholesalers. These individuals, again, will advertise that they can buy houses, but since they have no skin in the game, they sometimes overpromise of what they can pay and do for a seller, pay for a house and do for a seller. And so if they can't perform, if they don't find somebody else to flip or sell that contract, the purchase agreement to with the seller, then the seller is left in a bad situation with still having a house that they need to sell. And for the wholesaler, they don't have anything at risk, so they just move on. And that's part of their business model, is they figure that they will probably only close 50 or 60% of their contracts or agreements that they do sign. So that's just part of their business model, is they're just not serious about buying houses. They just want to get as many under contract as they can and liquidate what they can, and what they can't, they typically don't care about. So just be careful about if you want to sell a house to a cash home buyer, then deal with a company that is legitimate and that you've checked out before you sign any paperwork like Home Downsizing Solutions. The general things to consider when selling a house is what I would term the reality of selling a house, such as putting the house on the market in general, doing repairs and updating to make the house more sellable or competitive to other houses that are on the market, dealing with showings, dealing with the whole house inspections, that once you have an agreement with a buyer, a traditional buyer, most of them will always want a whole house inspection to make sure that they're not buying something that needs work that they're not aware of. the negotiations with the buyers and then the buyer's financing to make sure that they are well qualified to actually get a loan to be able to buy your property. And then, of course, the closing and possession dates, so that you have so that you know that they're going to actually close and when they're going to expect you to move. Again, with us, we can be very flexible with both of those items. And then again, the catch-22 that we deal with a number of times with sellers that we work with is that catch-22 of moving and having potentially a vacant house. We can, if you're waiting for an apartment to move into, but you're not quite sure when you can move, we can still buy the house, but allow you to typically remain in the house for 30, 60, sometimes up to 90 days, so that you know that the house is sold, but you can transition to your new home or apartment on your date of choice, so that we can be very accommodating and flexible to that. So what I always say is, if you want to sell, you must deal with reality. Again, the condition of your house versus others on the market that will determine, or certainly partially determine, pricing for the house, the flexibility of when the house can or will sell, the availability of financing for buyers. That all fluctuates as well, depending on the market at the time. And next we can move on to transaction costs to sell a house. So no matter how a house is sold, there are inherent costs to that transaction. Typically what I refer to as marketing costs or marketing expenses. Typically that's a real estate agent, but sometimes even if you want to sell the house yourself for sale by owner, there are still inherent costs to do that, to be able to attract a buyer to get your house sold. But in a typical market, there would be a buyer's discount, where, again, typical markets, most buyers will never pay asking price. For the last year or so, we've been kind of in a odd market where some buyers will pay over asking price. But in typical markets, everybody wants a deal. And so most offers will always be under the asking price. Closing costs, closing items such as the closing fee, the title insurance, recording fees, the inspections, home warranty, things like that. And then the buyer's closing costs that, again, in a typical market, the buyer will typically always ask for the seller to pay for some of their closing costs. That still can happen currently, but not quite as much as in a typical market. And of course, if there are any repairs or updating to the house that need to be done, any deficiencies that the whole house inspection or an appraisal has turned up for the property. The benefits that utilizing a realtor can bring a seller is they should anyway be your advocate. They work exclusively for you. They should be an expert and knowledgeable of the current market conditions so that they can guide you through getting a house sold, and should have the knowledge and experience to get you through that transaction with minimal stress and hassles. They should have contacts to contractors so that if some things need to be done to get your house sold, that maybe they can make the introductions for that. And just being professional to guide you through that entire transaction. And again, we work with what I would term as total solutions agents that can make those things happen for you. The benefits that Home Downsizing Solutions brings, the primary reasons that people work with us and sell a house to us, is, again, that we use private funds so we can close when you want us to close. We don't list houses. We're here to buy the property. The seller doesn't have to do any repairs or updating. They don't have to move any of their stuff. We buy completely as is. And depending on how we arrange things, we typically pay up to $1,000 in moving expenses. We can be very flexible with selling and possession dates. And you don't have to worry about any vacant houses or a vacant house when you sell the property to us. What I would like to also say is we offer custom solutions that nobody else does. So we want to take your situation and provide the best solution we can for your specific situation. So the bottom line, if you're considering selling your house and moving to a smaller home or apartment, or if you have family involved that are helping you with that process to get into senior living care of some type, is really what is important to you and what needs to happen to get to a better place. So the items to consider: do you want to put your house on the market, or would you rather sell as is, or do you mind doing any repairs or updating that might need to be done or might need to be identified by a traditional buyer? Are you prepared to deal with home inspections and appraisers, open houses, showings for the property at the last minute? The catch-22 of moving and transitioning to a new home or apartment. And how much control would you prefer to have over the transaction? So the other bottom line is, with Home Downsizing Solutions and myself, we can provide multiple solutions depending on what you want to see happen. We're here to assist you in the best way that we possibly can to make the sale of a house and transition to a smaller home or apartment or senior living as stress and hassle-free as we possibly can. So if there's a way that we can assist you, please contact us at homedownsizing-solutions.com. Or again, you can call my office toll-free 855-291-5005, and we would be happy to help you in any way that we can. Thank you very much for watching and listening to this edition of the Home Downsizing Show. Thank you. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Home Downsizing Show. For additional information and resources on home downsizing, just go to homedownsizingblueprint.com. That's homedownsizingblueprint.com. Or if you're ready to sell your house and downsize, just go to homedownsizingsolutions.com. That's homedownsizingsolutions.com. And if you have ideas to improve our show, or topics that you'd like us to cover, or have any questions that we can answer, just call our office toll-free 855-291-5005. That's 855-291-5005. Thank you.